Yo, I thought I was gonna stream today, man. As soon as I got back, though, man, I was like, man, I'm tired. We've been running yesterday in Florida and stuff, and then I got back home and I was like, man, nah. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this video. I'm gonna do a series of videos actually, and just release them over the course of the next couple of days. Remember, here soon, early as this week, for Canon's sake, we'll be moving to a live show format, and I'm very excited for that. So be on the lookout. But today we have things that we need to discuss, and we are going to, of course, discuss this stupid video. I came across this video when I was in the airport. So I'm at the airport looking at Twitter. Oh, yeah, I know. That's the problem. And this video pops up, and it's some chick. We're about to watch it here, rambling on about a bunch of nonsense. She has absolutely no idea what she's talking about. However, it's exactly what I expect from that generation and younger, because this is the only way that they can make sense of things, is what they've been told. So when they come across this nonsensical, I mean, I guess it makes sense to them, but it is nonsensical conclusion. They think that they have opened Pandora's box or what have you. This will make sense when we watch the actual video of this stupid chick. Hold on. All right, check this out. So listen to what she says.
I'm about to blow your fucking mind. So capitalism is an economic system based on infinite growth and infinite consumption on a planet with finite resources. Therefore, by definition, it will result in the death of the planet. We can choose to have capitalism or we can choose to have a future, but we can't have both. I'm about to blow your fucking...
Okay, so she's an idiot. Let's get that out the way. Now, she thinks she stumbled across this groundbreaking sort of concept, but she's an idiot. Like, objectively, she has absolutely no idea what she's talking about, but she thinks that she has stumbled across this idea. I'm going to explain to you exactly how she's wrong. First of all, she has no idea what capitalism is. Capitalism has absolutely nothing to do with infinite growth in terms of infinite consumption or anything like that. It has nothing to do with what capitalism is. Capitalism is the private ownership of goods and services and the free and voluntary exchange of those private goods and services. Right? That's what capitalism is. Now, in the economic sense, the reason why capitalism is a thing, the only reason why it is a thing, is because it presumes that resources are finite in the sense that they are scarce. That is the first law of economics. There will never be enough of everything for every individual to satisfy their wants and desires. Never. So that's the reason why you economize. That's the reason why there is a market economy in the first place. If resources were absolutely unlimited, meaning they were not scarce, everybody had access to it when they could when they needed access to it, when they wanted access to it, and it fulfilled all their wants and desires. Obviously, that is a utopia, is a pipe dream. It would never happen. However, and if somehow, by the grace of God, we all became magicians, right, in the next generations, and they could just make things appear right there. Every individual was just born a magician, or not even that. Like, we're talking like mages and dark arts and stuff like that. If we're able to do that, but obviously that's not. I guess, and if we are, there will be no reason for there even to be a market economy. So it presumes, it already assumes, in its mere existence, capitalism, that resources are scarce, right? Now, capitalism is actually how you get what you generally would assume as an abundance. Don't look at the term abundance in this sense, in the economic sense, as being the antithesis of scarcity. Scarcity doesn't simply mean there's just not enough, right? It's in economic sense is a little more detailed than that, as I've already defined it. But the reason why you get an abundance of things, where you can go, let's say, to a supermarket in America and generally get whatever you want, definitely pre-COVID, and you were good to go, right? And then there's so much food being created that they could throw it out when it goes bad, and still be able to replace it. And you set these price what the point of prices are, right, in a market economy. So you do manage that said scarcity, and based on how, and I won't say how scarce, but the quality of the material that whatever it was created, how rare it is, yada yada. Obviously, there's price points that are determined by way of the market, which assures its worth, right? Or more, now I don't want to say assures, it more so validates it. And that's the market's way, you know what I'm saying, of keeping stuff on the shelves as well, and having prices, right? So when you talk about capitalism, if you think of it in this, like, it's like, I don't know if they think it in a more of simply being a consumer or being a buyer and a seller. That's not what it is, right? It's the private ownership of goods and services and the free and voluntary exchange of those private goods and services. And the reason why we economize, the reason why we're advocates of said capitalism is because we obviously recognize that. And the idea is to efficiently utilize said resources. And that's the beautiful thing of capitalism, that you personally don't know how to, purify water. I don't either, but I can go to the store and there's people that have been able to figure out that process, and I could buy something off of them for relatively cheap and within my budget, maybe not for other people, but certainly that's a very doable thing, definitely for the vast majority of people that live in my area, right? So it's about allocation of said resources, and you don't just, allocation does not mean you sell it. It doesn't simply mean sell it. This is why when people look at capitalism as merely being a buyer and being a seller, they're completely incorrect, because that's not all that it is, right? Private property rights, again, this is my water bottle now, I bought it, I own this plastic, I own this, the water that's in it, right? And if I decided to give it away, I could do that, and it'd still be capitalism, right? If I decided to resell it for whatever reason and someone purchased it, and then it'd be theirs, that would be, let's say, rightful under capitalism, because it's not simply about buying and selling. What we do, we look, and why the market is as it is, you look at money as the most common commodity, right, that everybody has and utilizes, because obviously a barter system is not the most efficient thing where you just trade devices and stuff. Maybe it works in some senses, and maybe it doesn't. But with us all having money and having access, easy to carry around, where we then exchange goods. Look, I'm not going to get into the Federal Reserve and how they devalue all that. I'm just talking about the general concept of capitalism in its truest form, which we don't have, which you don't really have anywhere in America. You have some that are more or less than others, depending on where you're at. Not in America, I mean in the entire world, for that matter, because when government gets in, it becomes the antithesis of capitalism, as it tries to tax, print money, which devalue currency and all of that sort of stuff. But what this chick represents, and I know I just kind of went on a little tangent there about peer economics, she's representative of the younger generation of people who have, unfortunately, the indoctrination camps known as public schools have developed a lot of people, tricked a lot of people into acting as if they, just because they not only say produce, just because they act in a market economy and on their desire. Let's say if they have a career that they want to pursue, not often is it lucrative. Not often the degrees that they get make sense, piling up all of this debt. And then that reality hits, and then they look at, okay, well, there's a problem. And a lot of their professors have said this. Ironically enough, the most protective people of the state, because they are funded by them, which the state is then funded by way of extortion through tax dollars, and of course selling assets of the unborn people by way of using central banking systems and what have you. Yeah, I'm going on. I'm going like all over the place right now, but they realize very, very, very quickly that they aren't as useful to the market, and they don't have any really marketable skills. And then they look at something's wrong with, let's say, an economic system per se. And again, some of that is that what they are taught, and some of it just because they're hit with reality that, yeah, maybe what you thought that you were wanting to do as because it was fun to you is not necessarily, a lucrative market. It doesn't have that much of a demand, your gender studies degree. And then they go into the market, they find themselves not useful or find themselves having to get jobs that they don't find as fun because they didn't learn anything else. And then they say, well, there's a problem there. Envy of people that do have money were able to navigate the market. And then they look at, well, there's something wrong with the system. Yeah, it is something wrong with what we have in America and generally across other countries to call the government. Funny thing is that when you look at, the economic calculation problem, you looked at Karl Marx's idiotic approach to labor. And you can see how a lot of these folks just don't get it, right? And how they think just because, again, they do something, they should be paid for it. And just because they exist as a human being, then they should have access to whatever it is that they want access to. And the people they want to have access to whatever should have that access. But they don't seem to understand that the reason why capitalism is a thing is because it's the economic system that is most efficient in doing so. It's not socialism. Again, one of the biggest scams probably throughout human history, recent human history, modern human history, is how schools systems have tricked people into believing that when you talk about poverty and finite or resources, rather scarcity in the sense that they talk about it, which is people going without. It's funny that for whatever reason they attribute that to capitalism when virtually every single example of people actually in general geographical areas not having what it is that they need and want, not even being able to afford it, as in the vast majority of the people within a geographical area. That system, or rather that setup and scenario, has come by way of socialism and communism, which have been historically, up until really recent history, were synonymous terms. When you look at the USSR and famines, and you look at how they tried to manage resources, kill a bunch of farmers in the process, but tried to manage resources. You had the state trying to manage resources because, of course, they wanted to care about everybody and wanted to account for everybody. And then they said, you had to sell it this way. Nazi Germany ran into this issue as well, but obviously USSR or Russia formed, and communism in Africa, everywhere that has essentially existed for the most part. That's what it has resulted in, the deaths of people. When you look at the systems and these geographical areas don't have what it is that they need and can't afford it. That has come by way of state socialism virtually every single time. Not by way of capitalism. Again, people trying to, all right, hey, this is USSR, right? Here, you're gonna sell this. This is how much you gotta sell it for, or rather, they ration it, and we'll give you this, like bread lines, right? We'll give you this amount. They get overages because they don't understand that concept. They get overages, and they get they don't have enough, right? And the stuff is on shelves. Too much of this because they can't. Central planning doesn't work like that. You cannot possibly dictate for millions upon millions upon millions of people in a geographical area. You cannot dictate what it is that they need. You can't. It's impossible for you to do it. There are ways that people try to engage it by acting voluntarily within said market, and then the market per se comes up with a general price point of something. That's the most efficient way to do it. Not a bunch of dopes, which is what a lot of you fools advocate, sitting there centrally planning and then trying to allocate resources to people. That has ended in, and virtually every single place that has happened, in what you guys claim would happen in capitalism. And that is areas within in poverty, like as in the most of the geographical areas is in poverty, unstable. That has not been a result of capitalism. That has been a result of communism, socialism. But again, they've done a great job in tricking you idiots, young folks like these, who sit up here and try to pinpoint capitalism as the problem, when capitalism is the reason why you got a lot of the things that you got, but you have to understand why that is the case, why prices are a thing. What is actual money? Why do we economize? What actually is scarcity? And if you cannot answer those questions, this is why Thomas Sowell says this, and I will end on this. The first law of politics is to ignore the law of scarcity.